everyone, I'm Celeste and welcome to my booktube channel. Today I wanted to film 25 bookish facts about me because I feel like people who are watching my videos are still trying to get to know me a little bit, and I wanted to kind of get the ball rolling with some facts, and maybe that'll start some conversations, or we'll have something in common, or what have you. So, when I wrote down the facts, I was brainstorming, and it was really hard. I had to watch other people's videos, and I had to think, and I would leave the list and come back to it. So anyway, uh, it was a lot harder than I thought it would be. So, first item, uh, first bookish fact about me. I got into reading when I was about 7 because I wanted to be able to read the comics out of the newspaper. And one of the adults in the room was like, "You won't understand them." And I said, "Well, I'll show you." And so then I took the comics and tried to read them. And I didn't understand them, but the more I tried, the better I got. So that was number 1. Number 2, I had a family library when I was growing up. My parents bought encyclopedias, and we had fiction and nonfiction books. So there was always a book in my house. I used the library at school, and we used the public libraries around where we lived, but I always had like a family library, so there was always a book within reach. Okay. Fact number 3. When I was a little kid, I wanted to be a writer whenever I grew up. In fact, I continued to have a dream of being a writer all the way into maybe my first semester of college, and then I changed my mind. Fact number 4. I am kind of a slow reader. So I read a lot, but when I read, it's like I'm watching a movie in my head, and so especially if characters have dialect and accents, I read a little slower, and I don't really think, I used to be stigmatized by that, but I don't think it's a big deal. I think we all do what we need to do. Next fact I have, I used to read only one book at a time, but I don't do that anymore. And what started that was I was reading Columbine by Dave Cullen, and it is a nonfiction piece about the Columbine shootings in 1999, and it was so depressing and heavy and dark that I started reading Tina Fey's Bossy Pants at the same time because I needed something light to kind of balance the dark. And so I would read Columbine, and I would feel the feels, and then I would read something funny, and it would help me, kind of bounce back from that, even out. Okay, fun, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so the next fact, I started reading the Harry Potter series in 2006, the summer of 2006. I bought a bunch of books on eBay, because I was shopping on eBay back then, and I read them while I was nursing my son. I had a baby in June of 2006, and so late in the night when I would be up changing diapers and rocking and nursing a baby, I would also hold a book up over the baby's head. So I read a lot of Harry Potter that summer. All right. 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, number 7. Bookish fact number 7, I prefer hardback books. I'll take what I can get. I like a good deal, but I prefer a hardback book because I feel like they just are aesthetically pleasing, and also I don't worry about cracking the spines because the spines are more durable. Which gets me to number 8. I try to keep books in really good condition. I don't bend pages. If I write in them, I either write in pencil or I make sure I'm using an acid-free pen. And most of the time, though, I don't even write in them. And if it's a paperback, I do my best not to break the spine. So some people don't want to be that cautious, but I don't know. It bothers me to mess it up. Another thing, I have a collection of signed books. So maybe one day I can do a video about that where I can kind of have a show and tell about my signed books. Some books I have bought signed just generically, and then some books I have met authors and gone to signings and have them signed personally. So there's that. Let's see. Next, As a profession, I didn't grow up to be a writer. I grew up to be a teacher of writing. I'm an English teacher. I currently teach high school seniors, but I've also taught high school sophomores. And in the future, I'll probably be teaching some lower level college classes because I recently graduated with my master's in English. So I have a bachelor's of arts and I have a master's of arts in English. So there's that. Let's see. Next fact, I like to buy books. I enjoy buying them, shopping for them. It's one of the things that I do, I guess, for like stress relief. I don't know what it is. I've always enjoyed buying books. In fact, I'm the one who, if we go to an antique store, I will go to the box of really old books from, back in the day that nobody cares anything about. Like, I'm the one who's looking at those, because I would almost rather buy those. Okay, let's see. I'm on fact number 13, I believe. I go through what I call reading phases, where I read books that are all on a similar topic or have a similar authorship. So, for example, I went through in high school a Stephen King phase where I read Stephen King after Stephen King after Stephen King book. I also went through a phase where I read a lot of dieting memoirs. I also went through a phase where I read a lot of mental illness memoirs, specifically eating disorders and bipolar disorder and things like that. I also read a lot of books that were centered around the topic of HIV and AIDS. I mentioned that in one of my book hauls, and I think I mentioned it in my last video because one of the last few books that I had been trying to get on my shelf actually was a book about the HIV/AIDS crisis. Okay. Let's see. Number 14. I read a lot of YA because that's what my students are reading, and I like to be able to have bookish discussions in my class. So if there's any downtime or in between, or if I see a kid holding a book, I'll say, hey, is that book good? Do you like it? Should I read it? Or if they've read it, I'll say, hey, I've read that book, and I really liked it. What do you like? Also, I use Goodreads to track what I'm reading because I've read so many books over the years that sometimes people will say, hey, have you read this book? And I honestly, especially if it was a book that I really didn't like that much, then I might not remember it. If it was like a 1 or 2 star book, I don't know, or it didn't really leave an impression, like it wasn't, fantastic. It was just, a sort of a guilty pleasure read, that kind of thing. Let's see. On that kind of same thing, I nag my kids about reading. Like, I'm the mom who I will come through, and you have like the mom things, like, hey, did you clean up your room, or did you do your chores, or whatever. I am known for coming through and saying, hey, have you read today? Like, have you read something today? Or I will say, hey, what are you reading right now? What book do you have out of the library? Or, oh, I have a book that's good. And they're getting to the ages where I can start loaning them my books. Some of my books they can't read, but some of them they can read. 7, 8, okay, almost done. Let's see. Oh, I've kind of mentioned this when I talked about buying books, but I specifically buy books when I get stressed. I have anxiety disorder, and so reading is one of the things that I do to help soothe myself. It's almost like a form of meditation, and I've thought about it over the years, and part of it is that it soothes me in that I focus on something, and so that focus is a part of my brain. Also, I'm moving my eyes across the page, and that makes me kind of sleepy-ish, kind of calms me. Rather than making me want to go to sleep, it keeps me from being as panicky. So I buy books and I read books when I'm feeling stressed and anxious. Another interesting fact about me, I was an exchange student in Madrid, Spain in 2001, and during the 6 weeks that I stayed there, I took the entire trilogy of Lord of the Rings with me, and so I would read that book, well, it was one volume. I would read that one giant volume at night when I was in my room by myself because I was starved for the English language because all day long I was having to speak Spanish, I was having to think in Spanish, I was having to translate things in Spanish, I was having to write in Spanish, and so when I would get back to my room in my host family's house, I would just read, and there were some nights where I would read, 100 pages, stay up really late because I was just so in love with the English language. So Tolkien and I, like, we had that bond. I don't know. I don't even know. Like, it was wonderful. So I have great memories of that. Uh, Kind of getting to back to books in general, I do loan out my books, which is surprising to people because as crazy as I am about books, you would think, and the way I feel about not getting my books messed up, not cracking spines and writing in them and tearing the pages or anything like that, that I wouldn't loan out my books. But I do loan out my books because if I have a student who needs the last book of a trilogy, or especially if I've read the book and I think that someone else will like the book, I'll loan the book. Now, some people, I loan them with less reservations. Well, I'll say fewer reservations than others. Like, I loan my mom books all the time, and she always gives them back in great condition and whatever. And sometimes I lose a book, it never comes back to me. But my theory on that is that it's just a material possession, and there are other copies of the book. And especially if I've read the book before, then I don't fret about it. I try to let it go. So let's see. So I've been to NerdCon Stories twice. I went in 2015 and then this past October 2016. I'm a fan of the Vlogbrothers. I started out being a big fan of John Green, and then I became a fan of Hank after I started watching and learning more about him and watching their videos. And so I think every time that there's a NerdCon Stories, if it's in Minneapolis, I'll find a way to kind of get there and have a good time. Like, I really enjoy that. Speaking of NerdCon Stories, the first time I went to NerdCon Stories, I stayed in the Hilton that is one of the host hotels. I say host hotels, like one of the main hotels that they advertise along with the convention. And that was where some of the authors and speakers were staying also. And so there was one night where I was really hyped up because being around crowds makes me really, like, hyper and weird. And I was in an elevator with a group of people and Lev Grossman. Lev Grossman, if you're not familiar with him, he wrote The Magicians, and he also writes for Time Magazine. He's a great writer. He's a great speaker. And I went to his signing, so I had met him earlier that day. Well, he was in the elevator, kind of leaning against the wall, and he had his headphones in, and being nervous and kind of hyped up, I'm the crazy person who made a death in an elevator joke while we were all in an elevator, and he kind of laughed at me. Like, he took his earbud out and listened to what I was saying, and I'm totally mortified to this day thinking about it, but I have, that's my embarrassing story with Lev Grossman, so there's that. Speaking of authors, I fangirl hard over John Green. In fact, in October when we were at NerdCon Stories, John he didn't do a whole lot of events, and one of the things that he did was he gave a speech about mental illness and the awareness and about self-care, and it was very touching and very moving, and I was fangirling, and my 12-year-old was sitting with me, and she was like, "Mom, you've got to get yourself together." But yeah, I'm a big fan of John Green, like, not just his writing, because I really do admire his writing, but I also admire the work that he's done with charities and the kind of authentic life that he presents to the world, and I just feel like he's a great role model, especially dealing with mental illness issues. I can read in the car. I don't get car sick. I can read in the front. I can read in the back. And in fact, I've read in the car all my life, so I guess that's a really nice, handy thing to have. And I also do most of my reading in bed. I lay in bed on my side, and I'll put the flashlight part of my phone, like turn the flashlight app on, and lean it against my chest, and then hold the book in front of it, and that's how I read in bed. So, and that, because most of the time I'm reading like a paperback or a hardback book, I prefer those over the Kindle books. So there's that. And then last but not least, my 25th fact about me is that I always have a book with me. recently I've been using Audible more. It's one of my New Year's resolutions, but I have also always carried a paperback or a hardback book, and since now I read multiple books. Sometimes I've taken more than one book with me someplace. So that that does it. That's my 25 bookish facts about me. I'm so glad that you stuck it through and you watched till the end. I hope that maybe we have some things in common. So hit me up in the comments as far as if you have a story or something that you want to share with me or commiserate with me or what have you, or if you have any questions. I think that's great. I will try to do another video soon. Tomorrow's my birthday, actually, so I'll probably be filming a birthday book haul pretty soon, so looking forward to that. Probably not until after this weekend for that, though, because we're not actually celebrating with the whole family until the weekend. So anyway, now I'm just rambling on. Thank you for watching. If you like my video, please hit the like button or subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye!